You know what? Transformation never stops, whether it's in you or in your organization. And today, our episode is brought to you by Transformation Continuum. They are a go to market pipeline for solutions and services across vendors, across the partner ecosystem, and out to your end clients. Basically, making sure that the transformation and the investment you're making in technology benefits all of those areas. They drive streamlining of that transformation by doing the go to market 3 times. They help you for the vendor, they help you for the partner, they help you for taking those customers, the new solutions that you've developed. So if you need help navigating and scaling across the digital transformation continuum, then they will work with you. They focus on aligning direct sales and engineering to a channel friendly program that has a cohesive, business relevant message that could still be differentiated by partners. They could accelerate practices by building the product, service, or solution into your existing practices and just make it real. So thank you for sponsoring the show today, and check out Transformation Continuum at transformationcontinuum.com. Now we head over to the episode where we are joined with the CEO of Transformation Continuum, Sabrina Shaffer. Welcome, Tech Divas, to the podcast. I am really on fire today because I get to have my friend, a rock star leader, and a community giver on with me today. We have Sabrina Shaffer. So you are in for a treat. She is a global leader. She has exceptional results in everything that she does. She just kills it because she combines analytical agility and really wants to hear everyone's point of view and bring it together for transformation. And you're the CEO of Transformation Continuum. So you do go-to-market strategy, digital enablement, and you really help companies make that turn that we're seeing the need for during COVID. That's so awesome. She has an extensive background in learning and behavioral analysis. She's a corporate attorney and litigator. That means she's an Esquire, which just sounds so cool, like on the end of your name. So you earned that though. And again, you just have a lot of relationships with different businesses to help them empower and revolutionize their cultures, which is just so awesome. And not to mention that you have been a long time foster parent and host family with Safe Families. You're on the board of Love Never Fails, which helps women and men out of sex trafficking, which is such an important issue of today. And not to mention some of the resource and some of the work that you do with breaking autism. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. This is very exciting. I love what you're doing. I'm an avid fan of the podcast. So thank you for having me.
Yes, happy to have you. And when I was thinking about your topic, I think we talked and it's like you transform companies into their new business. And I would love to talk about how you can help transform our divas and some tips that you have perhaps in transforming into yourself and how you kind of learned through that. And I'm just ready to dive in for our divas and see how we can possibly take from your success and your growing success. We're on this journey together. We're always learning and growing, but from what you've learned so far, how we can all be better together.
I love that. I love that. And it's so funny because we have this opportunity to build each other up and to learn from each other's experiences. And I've just been so incredibly blessed with some brilliant mentors. And you hit on it earlier. One of the key things that I've learned over the years from some really amazing women in tech and women leaders is over time, they are transforming sort of into themselves. And what's neat about that is, we were preparing for the podcast and really thinking about what's really helped shape my leadership over time. And it's this concept that you're never quite done evolving, but at the same time, that's okay. We're not supposed to be perfect. There's something actually quite refreshing about, being vulnerable and giving yourself sort of permission to be yourself where you are. I remember as I was transitioning from, the legal profession to IT. And it's amazing sometimes how life works out, isn't it? I was at this big conference, this big leadership conference that, and there was a big CXO of a motor company. And he had just transitioned to some CXO level of a large airplane manufacturer. And he's in his first big meeting, and someone pulls him aside and says, what do you know about airplanes? And this stuck with me, the way he responded, because I'm thinking to myself, what would I say? What am I going to say when people say, what do you know about tech? I was in the courtroom yesterday, and he looked at him in such a gentle, wonderful way and said, I don't have to know anything about airplanes. I know how to run a business. You know everything we need to know about airplanes. And, at first blush, maybe that would seem sort of maybe crisp or something like that, but it was actually quite beautiful. It empowered himself while empowering the other person to say, I'm transforming into myself. I've got some qualities that I'm bringing to the table, and you've got some qualities that you're bringing to the table. Because I think a lot of times, especially when we feel insecure, we try to push someone down, especially when we feel attacked. And I could see how that person was kind of coming at him or attacking. But again, he made it about the other person, and he was true to himself. He was able to kind of in that moment grow into himself while lifting someone else up. And again, transitioning from law to IT and then IT leadership, especially as a woman in IT, you kind of have to keep that in mind, that you're constantly growing into yourself.
Yeah, I love the analogy, right? And it is cheesy, but I love cheese. So, hey, let's do it. That when you're transforming a digital business, it's always changing, right? You're always having to look at where your customers are at, where your people are at, where your supply chain challenges, things like that. And it's a continuum, transformation
That's
continuum.
the name.
Yes. And it's so funny when you really do think about it in the continuum of ourselves. It's a continuum because we're constantly growing as leaders and as people. And I think you've done a great job doing it. And I'm with you. It's like, there's still more to do. And I think that makes you hungry as a leader, as a technologist, but as a person, just to continue to find what brings you joy. What do you like to do? How do you incorporate, for example, you do a great job incorporating community into your company. I know that's one of your big values of Transformation Continuum, is that you lead by example. You don't just do this stuff on the side, you bring it into your business. And that's like really amazing that you can integrate that. That's a joy of being the leader, so that you can decide to do that. But speaking of giving back, what do you think is a great value around giving back and really making it about the other person?
Oh, that's an interesting question. That's a great question. It reminds me of, I remember this so vividly. There were 4 people in a car, and we're in this big Suburban, right? So think just big car. And there's 3 gay men in the car and 1 straight man. And the one gay man who's driving starts to tell the straight man, I've been married for 14 years, and he's talking a little bit about his marriage. The straight man very unintentionally asked the question, were you the man or the woman? And all of a sudden that giant, Suburban felt like more like a Fiat, you could just kind of cut the tension in the air. And I could see, the gentleman who was talking about his marriage just turn red. I mean, you could just see him boiling, and he starts to go, well, and then there was another gentleman though in the back of the car and says, hold on. I could see why, that's a pretty common misconception. And, he went into how, gender is more fluid now, and how roles are more fluid now, and how relationships, and he gave this beautiful story about where we are now and why that's a misconception. And what was so amazing about that is that I could see both the straight man and the man who was married, who was talking about his marriage, both enlighten in that same moment. And both grow in that same moment. And the reason why is because the man who said, well, wait a minute, he made it about the other people instead of himself. And it's so easy to make things about ourselves, especially when it's personal, But when we do kind of step outside ourselves and kind of look at the big picture, it's amazing how you can help people grow. And frankly, how you in return grow. It's so I would say for sure, you know, key pillar to leadership for sure is make it about the other person. It's really true.
I love that. And having the perspective, we have to realize that we're making the future today with how we choose to act. And it doesn't matter. It's about what you bring to the table, your solutions, your attitude, your goodwill for people. And I love the premise of doing that by looking outside yourself, by removing yourself from the situation and looking from the outside in. Very, very beautiful.
It's incredibly powerful in business too. It's very easy. You know, we have a fairly large engagement right now with huge, you know, 3 Fortune 100 companies, and you know, we're doing a go-to-market strategy for them. It's a huge launch, lots of players, big ecosystem, and you know, trying to get all of their messages together. You know, they have to pick some pretty key words as part of their go-to-market strategy. So it's not just something that plays out in life or in our own development, it plays out across the board. As soon as you sort of kind of step back and make it about the other people, it truly does sort of transform a conversation and sort of a mindset of how people approach a problem.
Absolutely. Great wisdom. I knew you would drop some wisdom bombs for our tech divas today. And I know you've had some really great mentors, but what do you have to say about mentorships? Like what's really important there for you? What stood out to help you get to where you are?
Yeah. You know, one of the things that they just really harped on us in law school was get good mentorship. And it was something that, you know, prior to law, I was heavily involved in special needs and I was very young. You know, I started college at 16 and I had to figure out a way to raise enough money for college and to live. And I had this passion. And so the way I went about it was I found great mentors. Same thing with Continuum. You know, you just surround yourself with just incredibly bright people. And I remember as in a different conference, Melinda Gates was speaking, and she spoke about, you know, what was so brilliant about Bill Gates is that, and she said this sort of tongue in cheek, you know, he would always make sure he was the dumbest person in the room. And I thought about that. And of course, we're not saying that he's dumb or anyone should be dumb, of course. But the idea is that you surround yourself with people who are smarter than you in areas, better than you in areas, and you're humble enough to not just put them in the room, give them a seat at the table, but listen to them and empower them so that you can produce things beyond your wildest dreams, because it's beyond you at that point. So I would say look for mentors that are outside your comfort zone. Look for mentors that maybe have a different perspective than what you're used to. And frankly, you know, I have mentors, they don't even know it, who have done things that I don't agree with. And through their maybe misactions, I've realigned where I will necessarily go and the decisions that I will make. So I think there's a learning opportunity. You know, I'm obsessed with learning. So I think that there's always a chance to learn from mentors, to learn from people, even if they don't know it.
Yeah, I have to agree with that on learning the right things to do and sometimes what you wouldn't do. Mm-hmm. In that situation. I just watched the Rachel Hollis documentary. It is so good. For those of you out there, she's like what I want to be for all of you tech divas around success and knowing your goals. And she does bring up the fact that you're the 5 people you spend the most time with. And it's an honor to have you as a friend because you're one of those people that's out there pushing, grinding, shining, doing the work that's heart-centered. And I challenge you all to look at that, look at who's around you. It's like tennis. I used to play a lot of tennis. And in tennis, when you play with someone who's better than you play your best game ever because you're showing up the best version of you because you want to show up with those people. And I think you and I have both been in the corporate environment around presidents, CEOs, you know, real rock star Fortune 100 leaders. And what does that make you do? It makes you be your best and bring your best game, your best business plan, your best presentation, whatever it may be.
Right.
So I think an actionable thing that women can do from this is challenge yourself. What's one person that will help you improve that average of 5 people so that you can make yourself 1% better, 2% better, 20% better? Great.
I might add to that, even if you can find that one person that will help you get a little bit closer to a goal that's outside yourself. You know, one of my absolute favorite quotes is from Warren Buffett. He said, love's an interesting thing. You know, the more you give, the more you get back. And it's amazingly powerful. So if you can find that, like you said, that one person, and then start to build something bigger than yourself, you know, start to make it about other people, you'll grow farther than if you just initially say, hey, I got to grow. It comes true every single time. It's been so powerful for me.
It is. It's so true. I just second that. The more I give, the more I get. Like the bigger bonfire I build to light up success in women in tech, the more I find my success in my career and the more I learn and grow. And it's servant leadership. We have another episode coming around servant leadership. And it's just everything that you said is so true. And I love it. So how do you stay excited about things? You know, they're always changing. It's tough. COVID world, it's hard because I know both you and I love being out with the people. So it's hard to be where we're at. But how do you stay excited and motivated, especially as a CEO? Because it's a lot different when you're owning your own business. There's a slew of challenges, and kudos to you for doing the thing and going through that, because you're everything. You're the HR, you're the sales, you're the delivery, you're the everything. You wear many hats or many shoes, many stilettos, but
right.
How do you balance that? How do you stay excited?
Yeah, and if you know me well, you know what kind of shoes I'm wearing. I think, that's a great question too. I personally love Mondays. Anyone who knows me well knows that I love Mondays. I have a very apt nickname as a sunshine tornado. I love life. I love people. I love solving big problems, and I love winning. I'll just call it like it is. I love winning. And, one of my favorite things that this is on one of the videos we did, is when someone calls you up, someone on your team. This happened again just the other weekend. And they said, I just solved this big problem. Guess what we just did? It fills me up. So, I'll tell you this, my background's in behavioral science and behavioral analysis, and I love to figure out why people do what they do. And there's a really interesting study about being excited. There was a whole series of interviews of Olympic athletes, and right before they went out, they would ask, how do you feel? And the study assessed how did bronze and silver compare to gold medal winners. And they found that the bronze and silver athletes tended to respond, I'm nervous. And can you guess what the gold winners typically said?
I'm feeling great. I'm ready to win it.
Excited.
Yeah,
excited. I'm excited. When you show up, it's amazing how powerful mindset truly is. And it's time and time again, you can't fight science, when you show up and you get excited, that's when the real innovation gets to happen. If you kind of take it as an adventure, as a continuum, all of a sudden you realize how big you can really impact the world. And even if it starts small. And as, sort of a tech diva or part of Tech Diva Success, I would challenge a lot of your listeners to kind of get excited about transforming into themselves. I think there's a lot behind that from an organization standpoint and from a personal leadership or a personal standpoint.
What a wonderful, beautiful way to bring together your passion for people, the community, the transformation. And really, you can't transform into something if you don't know what that is, if you're not setting goals. And I did a goal workshop lately, and people were saying, I'm too busy. I don't have time. If you don't have time to figure out where you're going, it's like a GPS. You put it in there, you're just driving around the block looking for Pokemon, right? Like you're not really going somewhere. So in transforming into yourself, it's baby steps of like, I want to try to incorporate more community into my business, or I want to try to figure out something that I can be passionate about in my role so that you can bring the benefits. So I think it's also something to be said about, ladies, let's get together and figure out where is the next little baby step. And that's the points on the continuum that make it ever growing, ever circling.
You know, that I had a mentor speak on this very thing. He said, if you're too busy to invest in yourself, you're too busy. And it's so true. You know, you physically, again, another mentor taught me this, you physically have to write it down. I want to see in ink blocked on your calendar. And I used to call it an investment block. And anyone who's ever worked for me knows that I've got my investment block every week on my calendar, and that's my time. You know, it's so true, because the more you're investing in yourself, assuming you're making things about other people and, you know, all the things we sort of talked about here and that you talk about in your podcast and in your books and all these things, you're really then transforming further into yourself and helping drive that change that we want to see.
Which is all really living your best life. I mean, it's all about making it count. Like, we don't know the time that we have here. My word of the year is thankful and gratitude, because we've seen so much change in the last year. The things that we take for granted, going to coffee, grabbing a glass of wine with a girlfriend, going to the mall, you know, like just basic things that we can't do anymore. And I just love what you said here about it. It's so true. Putting the pictures and images in there are really important too, and making that real. So I know you have a lot more that people might want to engage with you on, because you help these companies transform. People might feel called just to reach out to you to connect, because you are one of those people that can make everyone better, because you're doing the thing. And I just honor you, and I honor all the divas listening out there, because you're investing in yourselves by listening to this podcast, supporting this podcast, because this is not supporting me, it's supporting you. All of these things you're going to take with you, because they're impacting your mindset. You can think and grow rich. If you haven't read that one, that's a must read. It's old school, but it just shows you what Sabrina said, the power of the mind. And if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Yeah, best way to reach out to me, you know, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, Sabrina Shaffer, or you can find me at transformationcontinuum.com. Yeah.
Wonderful. And do you have any last parting words of wisdom for the Tech Divas?
Parting words. You know, there's so much good stuff that comes out of your podcast. Can I just quote all your podcasts? You know, I think, you know, this was cited to me by my mother when I was really young, and it's always stuck with me. And I'll give it to you even as a secret, as our sort of parting words here. You can be changed by what happens to you, but refuse to be reduced by it. There doesn't have to be things that tear you down, but it can bring you up. You know, it can change you, it can build you, and frankly, you can change and build other people through it. So that's what I'm going to leave it with.
All right. Well, with that, go mom. This is really beautiful, and it's so true. Yeah. Thank you for coming on the show. Reach out to her, and let's just celebrate all the fabulous women CEOs today who are transforming into themselves, and all the tech divas that are transforming into them best selves. So thanks, Sabrina.
Thank you.